Welcome aboard! We will be your guides during this magical journey into the movies. It's the perfect job for us because we love the movies. It's showtime! Ready when you are, CB!
Action!
Welcome to Monoreel Radio, episode number 347. I'm Sean.
And I'm Jackie.
And we are here this week to review and discuss 2002's The Hot Chick as we finish up the September of Sandler. Yes, this is a touchstone film that was in partnership with Happy Madison.
You know, I have to be honest with you. When I first said September of Sandler, I was half joking, but I was kind of surprised to realize that we had enough films to fill almost the whole month. I mean, Waterboy was an obvious one. Bedtime Stories was an obvious one. This was a reach, but it is a Happy Madison, and we get the Sandler cameo. So my history with this movie.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about this.
I just confirmed about 15 minutes ago before we started recording that I did, in fact, see it in theaters with Joe. I remember vividly seeing it with Joe because I remember the points that he laughed at, but I couldn't remember if we saw it on the big screen or if this was something we might have rented. But no, there was something about this trailer back in 2002 that hooked us and made us want to go spend our, at the time we would have been about 16. So our newly working paper approved hard-earned dollars, this is where we chose to go spend them.
Yeah, but that makes sense, though, because I can see where if you were 16, where this would be appealing to a 16-year-old. My history with this, I saw it for the first time this week because I was also 16 when this movie came out. And as much as I love Adam Sandler and as much as I love Rob Schneider, I saw this trailer and I thought, oh, this is just dumb. And I never went back to watch it.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm like, what was it about it that hooked us in? I was surprised to learn that this was your first viewing. But I also do kind of understand that because this was Rachel McAdams' first film. It's not like you knew her from Mean Girls or from the rom-coms where she wasn't the name that was drawing people in. But there was something about it that Joe and I said, yeah, this is how we want to spend our Friday or Saturday night after work.
You do fall in the target demographic. So I sort of understand why you would have done it then. But I think the question is this the movie that you would go spend $16 to go see in a movie theater now?
I'm going to answer that right now. No, they wouldn't even make this movie now. Well, what, are you kidding? The script is dead in the water.
And I guess that answers my next question of does this film hold up? Well, there's the whole review, folks, but I guess we'll go ahead and talk about it. That on top of something is what we are here to discuss today.
This episode is sponsored by Fierce Fox Co., designers of handmade silkscreen shirts. Fierce Fox has a t-shirt, tank top, hoodie, or crew neck for every fandom. So whether it's the movies or theme parks, princesses or villains, the MCU or Star Wars, everyone will find something they love. The designs range from subtle quotes from our favorite films to iconic characters we can wear proudly in so many different styles, such as sketchbook and concert tees. Listeners of Monoreel Radio can get a 20% discount using the code Monoreel at checkout. Visit fiercefoxco.com to check out all of the collections.
In ancient Abyssinia, I guess that's how we're pronouncing this. A young Princess Nawa uses magical earrings to switch places with a servant in order to avoid a toxic arranged marriage. In present-day cheerleader Jessica Spencer is mean and manipulative and feuds with Bianca, a cheerleader from a rival school. After cutting class to go to the mall with her friends, she walks into Mambuza, a store that sells ancient treasures. There she finds the magical earrings, not knowing what they are, and then she learns that they are not for sale. However, she wants them to wear to prom, so she swaps them out with another set of earrings, pays for them, and walks out. Meanwhile, Clive Maxtone is a middle-aged criminal robbing a gas station. As he's robbing the convenience store, Jessica and her friends arrive to fuel up and mistake him for a gas pump attendant. While trying on her earrings, she unknowingly drops one, which Clive finds and takes for himself. At home, we see that Jessica does in fact have a kind side when she consoles her brother Booger after he was recently beat up at school. We also learn that she has a boyfriend named Billy. He is the quarterback of the football team. That night, as Jessica still has her earring on, Clive tries his on, and the next morning, they awaken to see that they have switched bodies, but they don't yet know how this has happened. Jessica calls her best friend April and meets her at school. At first, April doesn't believe her, but once Jessica begins to tell her childhood secrets that only she would know, April decides to help her by letting her stay at her house until they get it all sorted out. Their friends Lulu and Ling Ling are also brought up to speed, and they start to believe that other girls in school who have something against Jessica because she's been mean to them may have put a curse on her. They start to ask some of her rivals, including Eden, a goth girl who practices witchcraft. She teaches them about Santeria, and they now believe that Bianca is the one that has cursed Jessica. They devise a plan to go to the nightclub where Bianca hangs out and get her to dance with Jessica, as they believe that they can reverse the curse if they spot a scorpion tattoo on Bianca and conclude that she is the one that initiated this entire thing. Well, of course, Bianca has no such tattoo, and instead chaos ensues as instead Jessica gets into a fight at the nightclub. The next day, Jessica fakes being Spence to get a job as a janitor at their school so that she can be there and monitor everything that's going on, meaning that she needs to submit fingerprints for a background check. Remember, she is in Clive's body the whole time. Meanwhile, Jessica's parents have mistaken her for their new landscaper, Taquito, and her father specifically bonds with Taquito and vents about their marriage problems. Upon further research, they learn of the earrings and its power, so they return to Mambuza, where the shop's owner tells them that they need to reunite the earrings to end the curse. Not knowing how to find the other earring, they post signs hoping someone will turn it in. With prom quickly approaching, Jessica overhears Billy talk about how much he loves her. Meanwhile, authorities fax the school the information that they have on Clive to inform them that they have in fact hired a criminal. Jessica and April decide to go to prom together as Billy sees Clive as Jessica as they are walking on the street and is robbed by him, leaving him confused and heartbroken as to how his girlfriend would have done this to him. At the regional state cheer competition, their school defeats Bianca's with Jessica dressed as the school mascot, which apparently is allowed, as mascots aren't technically cheerleaders and school employees are allowed to be mascots. And of course, they think that this is Spence the janitor. So they win the state championship. However, Jessica's enthusiasm quickly vanishes when she sees that Billy leaves the competition with Bianca. The next day, Clive, as the quote-unquote hot chick bandit, begins to make local news. So now they need to act fast. On the day of the prom, Jessica cries and Booger comforts her, telling her that he knew it was her the entire time. Meanwhile, school officials see the facts about Clive. At prom, April admits to having fallen for Spence, but Jessica tells her that she doesn't need Spence, that she just needs to love herself. The school principal sees Spence at the prom and comes back with the police. Jessica approaches Billy and tells him what has happened, but again, he cannot believe what she is saying. They track Clive in Jessica's body down to the Catpole Club, which is a place for exotic dancers, as you can imagine. He agrees that he will let them switch bodies after he makes back enough money to pay back his gambling debts. After a scuffle, Jessica gets the earring off of him and puts both of them on. At this point now, April says goodbye to Spence, and the two switch their bodies back. Clive is arrested, and Jessica reunites with Billy. The girls graduate, and Clive escapes custody and is then taken home by a bartender that recognized him from the nightclub. All right, so
As far as the body swap movies go, this is a far cry from Freaky Friday.
Yeah, this is certainly not Freaky Friday at all. This is very different. But rewinding it all the way back, I really like the setup here. I like the ancient temple. I like the story of Princess Nawa not wanting to be in this arranged marriage, having these magical earrings, and then convincing the young servant girl to swap with her. And basically, she manipulates her because she says, you will live the life of rubies and diamond and gold, because she doesn't want this arranged marriage. So it's this really interesting character that you get introduced to early on that is willing to give up the wealth to live the life as a slave. But she, in and of herself, is also extraordinarily manipulative.
See, the irony here is that she's probably the most interesting character in the whole movie, and we get 2 minutes of screen time with her, and the movie's not about her at all. Although she does parallel Jessica quite a bit.
Yes.
As far as manipulation goes. I do like that we get to see the lore of these earrings play out, as opposed to hearing this later on and doing it as a flashback.
Yeah.
Or not at all. There is a world where it just could have been a voiceover and they're giving these earrings a backstory, which would have been like really, really cheap. Even cheaper than it already feels having this ancient world store in the middle of a mall.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate the setup here. So then we get introduced to Jessica and April in class, and then they're playing, like a Miss Mary Mac-esque hand game, which the words are pretty funny because they're it's like a double entendre, basically. So it's funny, but I don't recall the popular girls in high school ever playing hand games like this past maybe 5th grade, unless they were doing it ironically. This was not how people passed the time in high school.
No, but I think you needed to give them something other than telling old stories. Tell me one secret only I would know. You had to give them something else. And you're not going to give them a secret handshake, so instead you give them this little patty cake game that I guess they invented as children, and because they are, I will say, they are very, very, very strongly bonded. And that does flesh out really, really well over the course of the movie. And then it does add an added layer when April starts to fall for Spence, which is not at all where I saw this movie going. So there is something deeper there, which I think is important for the characters. But I think to have them play this little game, I think it just sort of, while you're right, girls of that age would not have invented that little game for themselves then. I assume that this is something they've been doing for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, I get that you need that touch point, but it could have been anything. It could have been a handshake. It could have been cheerleading choreography or something like that. I would buy that more than like this adolescent sort of game. So then we start meeting more of the secondary cast because we're populating the high school. We're seeing what Jessica's day-to-day is normally like. And we are introduced to Ling Ling. And we need to address this now.
Yeah.
I appreciate what they were trying to do because having a cringe parent embarrass you is totally relatable. But the fact that they're doing it as it pertains to Ling Ling's culture, and that's what she's embarrassed by, it's extremely uncomfortable. It's very much dated, and they don't unpack it enough to actually give it a really deep meaning, because they could have explored this relationship between Ling Ling and her mother a lot more.
Yeah.
And it would have been so much more impactful.
So what's interesting about this character is that she's biracial, and by biracial, she's Korean and African American. So she's got two different cultures, and she wants to associate almost exclusively with being African American. And she has two girls in school, twin sisters, the Maoris.
Because, of course, if you were casting twins and it's not the Olsens, who else
Right.
was it going to be?
But the weird thing is, obviously, the Maoris are African American, and it's almost like this character is trying to, like, play up to these twin sisters, but the twin sisters never make it about them wanting her to be a certain thing over another thing, because they're accepting of her no matter what.
Exactly.
So you're right. The animosity towards the mom and not wanting to embrace her Korean heritage falls flat past the mom just being, like, cringy embarrassing.
Right, because you could have done that with any character.
Yeah.
That could have even been channeled through April.
Yes.
Which would have been better than what they do with April's actual mother, because this runner of her constantly getting hurt in pursuit of trying to get to the bottom of what's going on with April when it's not April at all that's hiding anything. That wasn't funny. I mean, maybe if you were trying to hook a younger audience, you're trying to appeal to kids with that kind of humor, but like it was such a waste. But had you done that, you would have whitewashed what is actually a bigger issue and what does make Ling Ling's character interesting. They just needed to spend more time with her and unpack this a little bit more. And it would have been really meaningful.
Yeah, you took what could have been a really impactful character and sort of just made it offensive.
Exactly.
And,
exactly.
like, unfortunately, that is one of the few things that this movie really doesn't do well. I mean, it didn't do well by 2002 standards, but it is certainly aged very poorly. You're right, and they could have done a lot more, and this character could have meant a lot more, but, you know, it's just not what they did with it, and there seemed to be no motivation behind that. Because the other thing is, for the most part, all of these characters are just archetypes. Like, if you think about, like, honestly,
yeah,
of all of the cast, of all the main cast, April's the only interesting one.
I would agree with that, because they do try to make this a more heartfelt film. I mean, obviously that's going to be Jessica's whole arc, right? Is that she is the mean girl and she has to learn to appreciate what she has. She does, in the sense of, like, I'm so popular and, like, my worst day is a broken nail, but she's taking everyone else around her for granted. So they do, you know, give you a little bit of a deeper insight into her character with her familial relationships.
Yeah.
But otherwise, with the friends, you're right. They are all high school archetypes. And they really doubled down on that up front, where they blow off school to go to the mall.
Right.
This is another thing that feels really dated for me. You get the mall montage. You get, you know, the heads turning as they're walking through. Some of it's funny, like with the wind machines and everything. It's very over the top. It's very exaggerated. But then, you know, you have, let's not forget, these girls are in their senior year of high school. Some of them may not be 18 yet.
Right.
And you have 40-year-old males heads turning at the mall looking at them, which at the time when I was in high school, I probably didn't think twice about it, because, you know, I'm going to see this comedy movie. But now, I don't know if it's just, you know, the world we're living in or age, probably column A, column B. It's very uncomfortable to watch. And
well,
then,
it's uncomfortable if you assume that any of them are 17 years old. I don't think the implication is that any of them were.
But even if they're 18 still, they're children. Like, they're of age, but, like, they're children, you know? And then perhaps the most dated thing of all happens in this movie, where they carry Bianca off after Jessica slips the underwear into her bag. The mall cop calls Bianca Winona.
Yeah.
It's such a subtle line, because it's delivered very quietly, But at the time, I mean, I feel like people have forgotten about it now, especially if you know Winona Ryder from Stranger Things, and like she's made her comeback with the Beetlejuice sequel. But like, do you remember what a big deal it was when she was caught stealing?
Yeah, shoplifting.
It was because you couldn't believe that. It was, and because people weren't so hyper aware of mental health issues, the big deal was like, why is this rich celebrity stealing? It's like, she doesn't need anything. She didn't need to steal. There was obviously, you know, a lot going on that no one had any clue about what she was dealing with internally.
And 2002 was the same year that Mr. Deeds came out. So she starred in that
you're right.
with Adam Sandler. So Mr. Deeds comes out the same year that this does. So they're both in the can at the same time. And then that joke gets made at her expense. Like, you almost have to wonder if that was like ADR after the fact, like to put the joke in.
Maybe. Yeah, because...
Unless she's just a good sport about it, which could also be a thing.
I think she is now. I think, you know, how else do you deal with that other than to own what you did and laugh it off? And, you know, I think if she was a struggling actress now and never bounced back from it, yeah, it's in poor taste, but like, she's fine. She recovered, fully recovered.
Yeah. So anyway, now we get the scene where the actual swap of the earrings takes place. So they do something, in my opinion, that is really smart with Jessica's character. Because up until this point, Jessica is a dislikable character. Of course she's going to be. Interestingly enough, the two people who this affect are both dislikable characters. So
yeah,
there's no innocent victim here, which actually does sort of subvert expectations, right? Because one is a mean girl and the other's a criminal. But I like that she doesn't just out and out steal the earrings. Like, yes, technically she does, but technically she pays for them. So this is the first thing that they do where they make her dislikable, but she's not completely dishonest.
That's my exact note. It would have been very difficult to root for her if she had just out and out stolen them. We also can't not mention that this is the Sandler cameo. And probably next to the princess in the beginning of this film, he's my favorite character in this movie.
Yeah.
I remember this got a couple of big yucks from me in the theater just because of the accent that he's putting on, and you know, he keeps referencing storage compartments for the ancient world. We'll just put it that way. That's a funny runner. The other instance where they keep Jessica really likable, despite some of the things that she's doing to her peers, is her relationship as it pertains to her younger brother, Booger.
Yes.
Who I wish had a real name, but he is in fact credited as Booger.
It's an Adam Sandler film.
This is true. And Rob Schneider wrote it. I like that the focus, you know, he's a younger brother. There's clearly a big age gap between them.
Right.
And he's in her room taking her stuff. You know, my brother's 4 years younger than me. He used to, when he was really little, he used to go into my room all the time. And I couldn't stand it because I wanted my privacy. But, you know, there is something to be said for when you have an older sibling and you look up to them, you just want to be near them or want their stuff or do exactly what they do. So, I mean, took years, but like, I get it. But I like that Jessica's frustration comes from he's just invading her privacy, and that remains the focus of their relationship, and not that he is cross-dressing. She's never mad at him for that. It's never the butt of any joke.
And the parents never get upset about it either.
Exactly. The only thing that I wish is that she does try and make him feel better because he's getting beat up for this at school. This is another instance where it's like, big issue. We could have unpacked it a little bit more and, you know, done something impactful with it. So she comforts him and she covers up the bruising
Yes.
with makeup, which is a really sweet moment. Again, puts her really back on the side of likable. So it's good for her character too. But I wish that she had done something else and given him a little bit of advice as far as standing up for himself.
I mean, yes and no. I think the scene is necessary because you do need to soften her, and I like that she does it. And it's especially kind of charming that she's doing it with a younger sibling.
Yeah.
I mean, what's she going to do? Say, hit him back. Don't take it. I mean, there's not much else she can say. So, could she have done something else? Yeah, but what difference would it have made at that point?
Right. And I mean, that's not entirely in her character either to hit people. You know, she's not fighting people physically. She's maybe doing it with her words a little bit more. And it does become a little bit contradictory then, because if she's telling him to stand up for himself, she is kind of a bully at times. The other place that I feel like this is a bit contradictory, and then we'll be done with the setup here, because a lot of it is set up, and then like once we get into the second act, it's just really playing a lot of it for comedy. But I do feel like this is worth noting because it contradicts itself a little bit. We get this beat where Billy comes to visit Jessica, and she, they're trying to make this as rom-com-y as possible by having her climb down a tree to go see him, even though I really don't believe her parents would have cared if she walked out the front door.
It's a lot. Just to kiss the guy, because they're not doing anything else. It's an awful lot.
Exactly. She doesn't even get in the car. They don't go for a ride. They don't do anything. But to that point, that's exactly the point that I'm bringing up, is that we're establishing that Jessica is pure. So they're trying to, I think, double down on her innocence here, and again, trying to keep her likable. But where I find it contradictory is that she doesn't deserve such a nice guy. I mean, I love that Billy is not, and he's genuinely not trying to pressure her into doing anything that she doesn't want to do. And for 2002, I can't even tell you how refreshing that was, because that was always the trope of any high school relationship or the high school boyfriend. And with prom looming, it's pressure, pressure, pressure. So to see that he said it and he meant it, and he wasn't saying that to dupe her into doing it, it was so great. And we love Matthew Lawrence already. So this was wonderful to see. So even though I find that contradictory, where this was very smart from a screenwriting perspective is that this doubles down on the idea that she's not really seen male genitalia. So when she wakes up with it, it hits even harder.
That morning reveal is hysterical. And not so much, I mean, seeing Rob Schneider wake up and his reaction as her, it is very funny. But specifically, it's Rachel McAdams when she wakes up in his body. Or when we see him in her body, which makes no sense to say out loud.
No, his brain, her body.
His brain,
yeah. No, you're
her
right.
body. When she gets up, just her body language, the physical comedy that Rachel McAdams provides in that moment is so subtle, but it's so good.
Quite frankly, I think she handled that better than he did. I think for Rob Schneider's performance, a lot of it was in the voice, and thinking about his interpretation of what the femininity looks like in the mannerisms. I don't think he studied Rachel McAdams' character or studied Rachel McAdams herself to see how she would be doing it. But I do like the reveal in that the shock is just, where is my body? I have male parts now. It's not so much about what Rob Schneider looks like as it is just the overall shock value of what has happened. And I think, like I said, that lands harder because of what's set up the night before.
Yeah. Then you get the reveal at school with April, which was all about having Rob Schneider get maced and continue to fall down those bleachers.
Absolutely.
But that's where it comes back to, Jessica starts telling April these stories. You moved here in 2nd grade. People made fun of you. I was your only friend. The locket you're wearing, I gave you when my grandmother was sick. And they come back around to this little, patty cake rhyme that they had with each other. And that's where I think the payoff was necessary. And I think that's where you had to have it, because otherwise, just as I said before, here's a secret only I would know. We've seen it so many times. So you kind of plus it up a little bit.
I also appreciate the fact that we didn't spend days trying to convince April of what is happening here. Because Jessica needs her friend right now. And April's down to help her, even though she doesn't really fully comprehend what's happening. I mean, neither of them do. But it just, it does do a good job of setting up that ride or die girlfriend relationship. So I like that it didn't take them maybe seeing Jessica's body somewhere else to confirm, oh, it's really you in there.
Yeah.
So April's going to hide Jessica at her house. Even though Jessica's parents are sort of so checked out, like I think she would have done just as fine staying in her own home. But this is where some of it completely loses me. And I'm like, where did I ever find this funny? Because this movie has all of my least favorite things: hair and toilet humor. I probably didn't find them funny at 16, but I don't know why I rewatched this so many times, because I think I didn't mention this at the top of the show, but like, this is one of those movies that like I know beat for beat because I've watched it a lot, but like I can't remember why. And it's not something, I don't think Joe and I went back and watched it a whole bunch, but I feel like my brother might have. And I was watching it with him, but like I've seen this movie upwards of 10 times. And I remember being grossed out so much. And as I was watching it now, I was like, okay, this is why I haven't, revisited it past maybe the age of 25.
Is this one of those movies like Dodgeball that no matter whose house you went to, it was always the DVD that was on?
I don't think so. Because I just remember it. I mean, for sure, I remember it vividly with Joe because we saw it in theaters. And I can hear him laughing at certain points. And quoting this, we would quote it. And I think that's why also I remember it with my brothers, because we would quote it too. Yeah.
I think you not so secretly love this movie.
Oh, God.
Yeah, this is where things go a little off the rail, because you're right, specifically to the parents. It's actually my next note is, after a few days, how have they not noticed that she's gone?
Yes.
I know they're checked out, but I mean, yeah, Booger is doing what he can to cover for her, and she's leaving notes saying, studying at April's, probably spending the night. And this was before the days, like they have cell phones, but they were like super primitive flip phones. Like you had to pay per text message, so no one really sent text messages at the time.
Yeah, I had one of those when I was 16. It was just basically so you could call your parents either before you were driving so that they could come to pick you up, or when we did start driving, I still had a phone like that, just to let them know I got to my destination without, destroying property or hurting anybody in the process.
But to that point, it is 2002. At this point, I won't even say most. I'll say about half the kids I knew had a cell phone. I did. I mean, look at their house. They're a pretty well-to-do family.
Yeah,
her parents
yep.
bought her a car. I find it inconceivable that she does not have a cell phone that they could call her on. I'm not saying she needed to pick it up every time or at all, but maybe that speaks to them being completely checked out, or them just being like the archetype dumb parents.
Yeah, it could just be that they're like 90s parents, it is that archetype. But I do also believe it's smart, because Jessica does find a way back into her own home via taquito, which we will talk about in a second, because that's something that really doesn't age well either. But her presence is felt there because she's going in, she's grabbing her own clothes, she's leaving the notes. And like, honestly, once I started driving, that was life as a teen, because you were going to school, you were working, you were doing all your extracurricular stuff. Like, my parents, I'm not going to say they didn't care what I was out doing, because they very much did, and they were still involved in my life. But like, with what my schedule was, they were just thankful that they didn't have to be the ones to chauffeur me around anymore. So they didn't care how long I was out of the house, as long as I was checking in with them. And because I could drive myself, it was like, all right, you know, if you're going to burn the candle at three ends, go for it. So for that much, I do believe, especially because the writing notes is very strategic. And what's also clever is, even though it's Rob Schneider's body, it would be in her handwriting because it's her brain, you know? So I thought that that was really clever. The tracks are covered as far as her not being present. Where I think they dropped the ball is with her relationship to Billy and not being present with him. It's like he barely even noticed that she's gone. They're not broken up, and it's like he's going with Bianca already. The only thing that I bump on a little bit, well, I bump on a lot of things with this movie, but Jessica is going home. She's grabbing her clothes. Why not just buy clothes that fit?
This is my next note. It's like you copied my homework, lady. Why they didn't just put him in unisex clothing? I'm not saying that, you know, he doesn't have to be walking around in a beer shirt, but the fact that they're just, and I guess that kind of plays to some of the comedy of, we're going to make Rob Schneider look ridiculous. And I think for some of the confusion when it comes to what will later be Taquito's sexuality, which I don't think plays as offensive as maybe you do, but I think that's part of a bigger conversation once we get to that point. It just seems like Jessica is still trying to wear Jessica's clothes as Clive. And there's something about it that doesn't make sense, because you're trying to hide the fact that this has happened outside of a very small circle. But I'm not going to say you're making it obvious, but you're putting a lot of attention on yourself.
Right. Well, my next note is Taquito, so we can crack that wide open now. But to hit on your point a little bit, it's not just Taquito's storyline where having him in Jess's clothes, they start making jokes about the sexuality. It's also done when they go to the club with the girls later on.
Right.
So that's where I do feel like they're making a joke out of it. And especially because this is 2002, unfortunately, we're coming out of the 90s where, you know, gay panic was such a thing. And I'm not talking about, like, yes, homophobia was obviously a very real thing in real life, but it was such a comedy trope to write to the straight guy getting poked fun at and be, that's gay, that's too feminine, that's the, you know, like that was such a butt of a joke. Unfortunately, we're not very far removed from that. And I feel like that is the path that they went down here, just simply because they kept him in Jessica's clothes. So you could have avoided that whole thing if you were dressing him appropriately. Circling back to Taquito, the introduction of Taquito, you know, I get it. Thinking off the top of her head, this is what Jessica just pulled from. Is it racist? Yes, absolutely. It does not hold up very well. It was in poor taste then. It's very much dated now, especially because they're doubling down on it, not only with the name, but she's putting on, I keep saying she because it is Jessica in this body. Gosh, this is harder than Freaky Friday was with the body swapping.
Yeah.
But anyway, she's putting on an accent. She's pretending not to speak English. And I understand that this was all for the plot point of having her not taking her family for granted and being able to bond with the members of her family in ways that she's not doing as her real self, and realizing what a horrible person that she's being to the people that she loves. But there were so many other avenues that we could have taken. Even had you just not done the name Taquito or the accent, you could have been any kind of landscaper and it would have worked, because the dad does say this is supposed to be Jessica's chore,
Right.
but she doesn't do it anymore. And it also explains why she does know what to do, because that's where I don't believe it for her characters. Like Jessica, yes, she's shirking her chores, but it's like, why would she know to do that? Why would she know about fertilizer? But if it is her chore or supposed to be, it's a good way of covering that up.
I mean, it does certainly come off as dated, but in a weird way, I sort of find it believable that that's what she would have done, because I don't think it speaks to her being mean, and I don't think it necessarily speaks to her having a backwards way of thinking so much as it is that it just goes to show you further how sheltered she is in life. Like, she does sort of have this backwards view, but how much of that is because she comes from this very charmed and privileged life, where she, up until this point, it's very clear she's never paid the price for anything that she's done.
Right.
And I think that speaks more to it than anything else. You agree to disagree. And especially when it comes to the sexuality of this particular character, because Spence, quote unquote, gets confused as being gay throughout the entire film, and to your point, sometimes for comedy, which, you know, certainly is not appropriate. But when it comes to Taquito specifically, you get this really awkward scene later where Mom starts coming on to Taquito.
Oh my God, it's so bad.
But
it's so uncomfortable.
But there's a line where she's like, "Oh my God, do you like men?" And Jessica answers, "Well, of course I do," because she's answering as Jessica. She's not answering as Taquito. And what sort of happens there is, in a weird way, even though Mom's the aggressor because she's the one that initiated it, it allows Jessica and her mother to have this moment that her mother allows her to have because she believes she's safe with Taquito, who is not attracted to her and therefore will not harm her.
Exactly.
So they play it for the comedy of it, but there is a certain, like, it's perhaps ineffective innocence, I think, is the best way to categorize that particular moment.
That's the thing. I mean, the Taquito and the race issue is not acceptable for this character at all. But where they do start to play with the sexuality, the one place it works in favor is pertaining to the mom.
Yeah.
And how Jessica is able to end up helping her. Mom coming on to Taquito is way, way too much. Where it also does play for comedy well is how uncomfortable Jessica is having to hear her father talk about not getting any.
Yeah, it's so weird that her father decides he's just going to bond with his new landscaper.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of out of the blue, but I mean, I think the point, because it does happen in multiple instances, is Jessica is so enigmatic. She does get people to open up to her quite a bit and to trust her. Like when she does decide, and I mean, it doesn't really, you don't really need this, but like she decides that she has to still go to school. So she tries to get a job as a janitor, and she uses her skill set. You know, even though you think that she's very self-absorbed, she does listen to people.
Yeah.
She manipulates people with it sometimes, but she does remember a callback to a conversation she had with the principal who played the tuba. She used that against the principal to cut class, but now she used it as a bonding moment. Yeah. And like, yes, she is still being manipulative because she's doing it to get a job. But this is another area where I feel that they drop the ball, because it's like they have the one beat where Spence is cleaning the locker room and overhears how Billy truly feels, which is, again, a great moment and not something that you saw typically in a high school movie at this point, where a guy is being so open about his feelings. And then he gets trashed by his friend for it.
Right.
So there's more of that gay panic just because he said something heartfelt.
Yeah.
I feel like to get this out of Billy, there could have been so many other scenes where, because again, he doesn't seem to notice that Jessica is missing. I wish that instead of having this whole storyline where Spence is working at the school, we focused a little bit more on Jessica's body and what it's doing at this point. Because when we finally do see her, I mean, we see what Clive has been doing with the body the entire time. And quite frankly, exotic dancing, she got off easy if that's all he was doing with the body. But I wish that, I guess because this was a vehicle for Rob Schneider and he wrote it, the focus was all on his performance and it wasn't like a true body swap where you see the other character having a character arc and what they're learning in this other situation. You know, it's not like Freaky Friday at all in that way.
Yeah. You know, something else that they do sort of, like, they do it well, and then they the whole setup is just for toilet comedy and putting Rob Schneider in more ridiculous outfits, is the girls start to assume that a curse has been put on Jessica, and they make the joke, they make the joke that it's easier for them to make a list of people who don't hate Jessica versus those that do, and Jessica kind of just, like, she almost wears it like a badge of armor, and of course they get into, you know, the pillow fight.
Oh, God.
But I wish that she would have taken a moment of self-reflection there.
Yeah.
And realized, like, oh, this actually isn't very funny. But they do all of this in service of bridging a gap with Eden. And I love that they do this, because Eden is a fairly interesting character, but when she starts talking about the witchcraft and the scorpion and Santeria, and they immediately go, oh my God, this was Bianca the whole time. Like, it's funny because we know that that's not what happened. It makes sense that that's what they would hypothesize, because you need them. They can't just trip and fall into finding the earrings. They need failure. You know what I'm saying? At some point, they need trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense that they did it, but it was all in service of putting them in this nightclub where Rob Schneider is still wearing outrageous attire. There's a very dated Backstreet Boys reference, which actually is funny for people of a certain age.
It's hysterical because it's so subtle when they're doing the hairstyle montage in the chair. You just think they're just trying to put absurd haircuts on him where they, you know, dye it platinum blonde or it's really, really long. And then when they start Xing out which boy he looks like and they end up with Howie, who has the haircut already.
Yeah.
It is hysterical.
It is. But it's about that and putting him in this men's room where he doesn't know how to use a urinal
God.
and he's grabbing the ice out of the urinal. This is the thing. Like, there's a moment here where I stop remembering that that's Jessica, and I just go, oh, this is Rob Schneider just doing something disgusting. And I don't think that they do Jessica's character a service because she's manipulative and she's panicked, but she's not dumb. In this case, she's just coming off as dumb.
I can't believe this. I'm actually going to disagree with you there because as much as I hate this scene and as vile as I find it, I think this is one of Jessica's shining moments because, like I said, she has the ability to win people over. So you have a 30-plus-year-old man on the outside who's never used a urinal before, and somehow he has the skill set to make this bathroom attendant feel bad for him and want to help him through this. That is Jessica. It's her ability to get people to like her. So I think as disgusting as it is, and as much as I don't want to even think about this scene, it's actually a pretty good character moment. The other thing that I do like about the club scene overall is that they have expanded the girl group. It's not just the popular girls. Like, through having to figure out what's happened to her, the only bit of self-reflection that she's done was with Hildebrand, where they go to her and she apologizes for the wrongdoing and they sort of fold her and Eden into the group. Another big miss is where they have this dance off with Bianca, because one of the things Eden says is that Santeria is marked by the scorpion, so they're trying to look for a tattoo, and as a result they have this dance off where they're ripping clothes off of each other to try and find it. Jessica's a cheerleader, right? She's got to be a great dancer. I appreciate that they had Rob Schneider learn some choreography. He doesn't do too bad with it, but like, to really sell this, I wanted to see him bust a move. Like, I wanted to, maybe they didn't want to use more of the song they did. I think they're dancing to Shake It Fast, I want to say, by Mystical. And maybe they didn't want to pay for more of that clip. But like, I really wish we had seen a bigger dance battle where Rob Schneider like really, really goes for it and nails the choreography. Instead of here, we get some fancy editing that makes him look good, but like, could have been a bit better.
Let's move on off of this and kind of get towards the conclusion here, because we've bounced around a little bit with Taquito more so than anything else.
I mean, Sean, this film is cinema. I don't want to do it a disservice by bouncing all over the place.
Let's talk about something that has driven me crazy, and we've talked about this before in other high school movies. When it comes to the time of year that this movie is quite literally all over the place. Now, I know it takes place in California. So in California, there's obviously different altitudes. There's different swings in temperature.
Sure.
However, you've got a ski trip that also runs into football season, which would make sense if you're having this in the fall and you're sort of like focusing this around homecoming. But instead, it's prom. So you've got a fall activity and a winter sport happening in the summertime, because graduation is just something we see at the end of the movie. Graduation doesn't actually mean anything in this movie because it's all about getting to prom. I cannot stand when movies do this. Like, nobody's prom is in the winter. Nobody's prom is in the fall. It's always at the end of the school year. It's way after you go skiing. Unless you live in Colorado. It's way after football season, wherever it is that you live. Pick a time of year, make it cohesive, and stick to it.
I agree. I think you could make the argument for if they were skiing up at Lake Tahoe, you do stretch the winter season out a little bit more, much like upstate New York, but not to a point where I'll buy that there was still snow up there in May and June.
Right.
If the argument is, was this stretched out over a whole school year? They do cover that too, because April's covering Jessica. She says they set it up really well, actually. I can at least buy you the weekend because I told your parents you were on the ski trip with Billy.
Right.
So this happens over the course of maybe a week, arguably. Yeah. It's not even like they didn't address passage of time. They very much did. So I can't buy either that this happened over the course of several months where the drastic change would be justified. That's a nice catch, though, because I hadn't even considered it. But, like I said, this movie has so many problems. To the point you made, too, we talked about it out of order and we bounced around quite a bit. But, like, I don't feel that if we had gone more chronological, it would have made that much of a difference as far as it making sense. Because the beats that they play for the comedy and the way that it's intercut between her home life, her school life, and just trying to get her body back, it really could have been any order.
There is another thing that happens here. We find through absolute chance on a website with Eden these earrings.
Yeah.
So it's like the most lazy, sloppy, unmotivated discovery of what these are. Now, it makes sense that they don't understand how the bodies got swapped. But now they have to go back to the shop owner who explains what has happened and explains that the earrings need to be reunited. That's all well and good. Here's the problem. You now have been living in this body for 4 days, 5 days. give or take. You had an interaction with this guy at the gas station. You thought he worked at the gas station. Now, it is possible that the four of them are just so about themselves that it could speak to how they don't recognize him because they weren't really paying attention and they don't really care, which I would buy. But you know where this guy works, or so you think. How is it that none of you thought to go back to that gas station to find him?
That's what I'm saying. I just feel like instead of this wasted screen time following Spence working at the school, we could have spent that time focused on Jessica's body.
Yes. Which is what you should have been doing the entire time.
And really, the only way that they address it is through the montage where they're putting up the posters for the other earrings. You could have spent all of that time with the rest of the girls tracking it down. And to your point, the way it comes back together is so forced. Like, oh, they find that on a website, and then Hildebrand is watching the news, and it's like it's really, really cheap, and it's so dated where you have the plus size actress eating a hamburger on the couch, and that's when she sees this news story of where the body is.
Well, not only that, but they don't plus that up by putting any there's no emphasis on time is running out, because what they're forgetting here is they have video evidence. She's all over the news now. Quote unquote, Jessica is a wanted criminal. If she gets caught and thrown in jail, you're stuck, because she ain't getting out.
Exactly.
So instead of saying, oh, we've really got to move on this quickly because there's a chance we may never be able to undo this, they're still making it about, okay, but let's get to prom first.
Right. They don't raise the stakes in that regard. And nor do they do it with Clive's body either, because the fax goes through, that dates the movie a little bit. The fax goes through that he's a wanted criminal. So it's
But they've let him start before he passed his background check.
Exactly. And it's like, all right, you bothered to have him working in the school just for this moment with Billy. This would have heightened everything too, where now Clive has to be on the, or Jessica in Clive's body has to be on the run, because prom is the least of your concerns right now. Again, you could be arrested, thrown in jail, and then you never get your body back.
Yeah, but that's not what they chose to do, and I do think that was a miss.
It actually could have been really interesting if they did meet each other again in jail.
Yes.
And that's where they get the earrings back together. I would have bought that much more than a strip club on prom night.
Right. Are we ready to move on to prom night?
I think so.
Because I don't have much else. What stands out, though, is that you get this beat with Ling Ling and her mom at the prom, where her mom basically calls her out for being ashamed for who she is. And you have this really great moment with her friends that are saying, geez, like, if this is the worst that she does, I'm paraphrasing, if this is the worst that she does, like, I'll take her as my mom.
Yeah, I wish I had a mom that was that invested.
But they shockingly completely undo it, because the most prominent thing here is the distraction that she says what was at the time and what is now Ling Ling's mother, an extraordinarily offensive word. And it just sort of, I had to pause for a second, and I thought, okay, so we accessed this movie through Disney Plus. Technically speaking, it's quote unquote through our Hulu subscription.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still watching it through Disney Plus. And Hulu and Disney Plus are going to merge.
Yep.
We're watching movies from Walt's era where you feel it necessary to put up disclaimers and warnings because of portrayals that are no longer appropriate. Let's just call it what it is. This movie, at the time of this recording, is 23 years old. You put the N-word in the movie. How is that not getting a warning?
Exactly. I mean, I will say this because I had seen it. I knew it was coming. It wasn't as shocking as I'm sure it was to you. And I'm not saying that that's not to make it sound like I am desensitized to the word. But like I said, I had seen this movie before, so I knew what the shock value was going to be. But this is one of those ones that I'm shocked that they have not just pulled all together or gone back and edited, because we know that they've edited some things.
Right.
So, like, this is one where I think you maybe should.
They could have just cut that line out, and it wouldn't have felt like they cut anything out of the scene other than they cut something in there that should not have been in there.
Exactly.
It doesn't hurt it doesn't hurt the story. I mean, very little at this point could. But you could still get across the point that is very charming about her friends who she's trying to play to. Again, we don't know why, because her friends aren't peer pressuring her into doing it. Sitting there saying, no, your mom's pretty cool. I'll take her as my mom. That should have been the emphasis, and it wasn't.
Especially because then you have the beat where she does go back out to the car to apologize. So where it didn't feel like they were unpacking enough in the beginning, it doesn't completely go nowhere.
Right.
But having that word in waters down all of the good that they tried to do.
Correct.
Especially the good that they tried to do after you did make a not just a mockery, it was very racist.
Yeah.
The entire time. So they could have landed the plane so much better than they did with this entire character.
Yeah. How about April falling in love with Spence? Because she knows enough to know that she's not falling in love with Clive, but she's not falling in love with Jessica. She's falling in love with Spence. I feel like they did this just so that they could give Jessica the moment of, you're a people pleaser. Stop trying to love somebody else and just love yourself because you're all that you need. Mm-hmm. This entire thing makes no sense. They wrote this in just to give her that line.
It's for the girl power moment. And it's only slightly less cringe than what happens with Jessica's mother earlier on. I will say this, though. It does lend better to April's character arc because, you know, they do it for comedy, but April wants to see Jessica's body when it first happened. Not Jessica's body. She wants to see Clive's body. She wants to see it, you know? I'm not going to spell it out any more than that. And we find out that April has had a lot more experience with guys than Jess has. And I also appreciate that April never, she never puts her down for that. Because in a lot of these movies, too, you also get just as much peer pressure from girls as you do from guys. You know, if they're like, oh, my God, you've not... They did it in Clueless quite a bit, where they put Cher down for it.
Right.
So I appreciate that they didn't go that route. But what doesn't... And again, because these are archetypes, we never really delve into it too much. I feel like they are writing, they're finishing arcs in the third act that never really peaked in the second. And as far as that pertains to April, we've set up the idea that she's trying to validate herself through guys, and she doesn't know what real love is. And that's why she does sort of find herself falling for Spence, because all of those qualities are what she loves about her best friend. And she's still very confused as to what real love really means. And then you have Jessica spell it out that it's got to be about her self-worth, not about the guys. So you started a breadcrumb trail in Act 1, left it in Act 2, and then pick it up Act 3 where it has to be like handheld very much. And that's also what happened with Ling Ling, is that you lost so much in Act 2 on wasted screen time for comedy.
Yeah. All of this so that we can end up at a strip club and Rob Schneider ends up in lingerie dancing and getting arrested.
The only part that makes sense about this strip club is when Billy runs into Jessica's parents and Booger, who they've taken along for the ride.
Yes, into the strip club.
And he feels, and I feel like a lot of this was also written for Matt Lawrence too, because of that comedy of, whoa, you know?
Mm-hmm.
When he runs into the family, he feels the need to cover his tracks of like, what am I doing here? But otherwise, it's just, this could have ended anywhere. And like, the more that we talk through it, I think a jail scene would have been more effective.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially because it's where Clive deserves to end up. And instead, where he does end up, it's more gay panic that they tried to write for comedy.
Are you ready to move on to the cast here? God knows I don't have anything else on the plot.
No, I'm ready to move on from this movie for life.
Let's try to move through this quickly. Rob Schneider plays Clive and the male version of Jessica. I got to give it to Rob Schneider. I actually thought he did a pretty good job here. And I think part of that comes from being cast opposite Anna Faris, because the two of them together are very strong.
The chemistry between them was great. It really was.
It's believable. I thought, he wrote it, right? So he kind of knows what he's putting himself through, but he was a good sport about a lot of things that I think a lot of actors would not be a good sport about. And I actually thought his performance was pretty good.
I gotta give it to him, yeah. I think that there are certain points where if he had studied Rachel McAdams' mannerisms specifically, it could have been a lot stronger, because I feel like they relied on pitching up his voice to demonstrate that it's Jessica in this body, when they could have done it through a lot more physicality. And instead of things like falling down the bleachers, we could have just seen it a little bit more in the mannerisms. But I think he handled, for as much as we dinged this because they made a joke out of the clothing, most of the time in very poor taste, he handled the femininity well, of having to be in very tight, very constricting clothes, because it's not just being in women's clothing, it's that Jessica's wearing really tight clothing. So he sold that well. But yeah, I just wish that there was I wish there was a certain McAdams mannerism that he had picked up and ran with through the whole thing.
Let's talk about Anna Faris. This is such a departure from what she got typecast in for a long time.
Is it?
Yes, it is. Because she's not a bozo. Like, let's call it what it is. She got typecast as dumb in a lot of movies for a very long time. Once she got Mom and she was on that sitcom, she really broke out of that. But I don't get that from her here. I get a confused teenager. I get somebody that, to your point, was trying to that confused lust and love, that was trying to be a people pleaser. I think that she's a deeper character than we're giving her credit for, but because you only have so much screen time, and because you chose to focus it on other things that were far more trivial, I think there's a missed opportunity here. But no, I don't think that this was the Anna Faris that got typecast for like 6 years.
I think it is a little bit, but I think because of the chemistry that she had with Rob Schneider, it does make it feel more like an elevated performance from her. To your point earlier, Mom, I think, is the best character that she ever played. I did not like Anna Faris growing up. I thought she was so one note. I thought the only thing that she knew how to do was bug her eyes out and have, she was just slack-jawed most of the time and going, ah. And she does that a lot here. We've not completely broken out of it. But I think because of the supporting cast, and because you did give her a little bit more to do than just be the dumb character, this was a turning point for her.
Rachel McAdams.
Introducing Rachel McAdams.
She steals the show. And this is the thing, right? Because you're introducing Rachel McAdams, it's her first film, so it's not like you're trying to keep her time on set short because you're trying to stay within a casting budget.
Sure.
they could have used her a lot more than they did, because as I said earlier, her physical comedy, specifically when it comes to playing Clive in her body, she absolutely nails it. There's so much missed opportunity here with her. I mean, how many times can you have her look down and go, "Where is my male genitalia?" How many times can you have her first period? Because that ends up being a joke too.
Yeah.
But like, there's just so much that happens here that she's just so damn funny that we don't get much of her. I mean, does she have 8 to 10? Does she have more than 10 minutes of screen time in an hour and 44 minutes? I don't think she does.
I don't think so. And I can't imagine that they would have shot with her for like more than a week. Maybe. Well, no, the cheer competition at first, they probably had her for like at least 2 weeks, but you knocked out this part pretty quickly. I mean, it is, you can just see the natural progression right into Regina George from here. This is what landed her that role. But to your point, I think that because it's the popular girl and the mean girl, I'm glad she didn't fall into those stereotypes for the rest of her career, and she wasn't typecast for much longer in those roles. It was just a natural progression for her. But I think it unfortunately overshadows how great she is with physical comedy. Where I said that Rob Schneider clearly didn't study her, she did her homework. Especially like when she's trying to negotiate giving the body back. Her facial expressions are just dead on to like raising the eyebrow, or like how he kind of like, even thinking in Home Alone 2, how he sort of like looks down or like points his face down and looks up at you because he's shorter. She got it. She just nailed it. And it just goes to show what a talented actress she is. I can't believe this was her first role because she seems so polished.
Let's talk about Matthew Lawrence as Billy before we sort of wrap the whole thing up, because I think we're just about done with this conversation. I mean, he's great, right? He's good in so many things. I think he was perfectly cast because he's got the boy next door look. He looks like somebody that would be the quarterback of the high school football team. But because he has always been such a good guy, you also would not have bought him as the type that's trying to pressure his girlfriend into having sex too early, right? It's not like you couldn't have used him in American Pie, for example. He would have been horrifically miscast in that film. But in this case, he was the perfect casting choice.
I would agree with that because he is the pretty boy, the consummate pretty boy. So of course he can play the popular guy, but I'm glad that they didn't write this character to the trope of either dumb jock or mean jock, like Jake's character who's pressuring people.
Yeah.
Then it would have been entirely miscast, but he was great for what it was. And I really bought the chemistry between them and that he was really in love with her. And that's another credit to Rachel McAdams too, that she's able to pull off having the leading lady chemistry this early on in her career. 2 other casting choices though that I do want to mention quickly. Michelle Branch, what are you doing here playing a DJ in the club? I guess they were trying to like cross promote her a little bit, maybe through the label and get her an acting role. And Ashley Simpson.
Yeah.
Overacting.
And no speaking lines, really.
Yeah.
Final thoughts on the hot chick. I'll go first. It's a shame that this movie is as outdated as it is, because I think that somewhere in here, there is a lot of heart. For all of the things that they did right, and for a lot of things that were accepted in this movie that were not socially accepted in 2002, like her little brother, for example, they completely undo it with all of the other things that they make jokes about. It's a shame because I think the cast is good. I think their performances are really good. But I think as I sit here now, 347 episodes in, this is just my opinion, and there are going to be a lot of people out there that disagree with me because they're going to say, well, how could you talk about things like Dumbo, and how could you talk about things like Peter Pan and make the statement that I'm about to make? I truthfully believe this is probably the most offensive film that we have reviewed on this show. That's not to say that anything that was not socially acceptable then is... Or for things that were socially acceptable in the 40s, they're not socially acceptable now. That's not to completely water it down. This movie's 23 years old. These things, a lot of them were not acceptable 23 years ago, and they did it anyway. That's the difference. They knew it was wrong, and they went for it anyway. So that's where I would put this. This movie, for me, has absolutely no rewatchability. I'll never end up watching this movie again. It's not the worst film that we've done for Monoreel Radio. I think Rocket Man still holds that crown. But this, by far, is the most offensive one we've ever done, in my opinion.
No, hands down. It is so dated, and to your point, it was acknowledged then that these things were wrong, and they did them anyway, which makes it really, really bad and shocking that it is on Disney Plus now, completely unedited. So maybe, if you're curious, go watch it anyway before they pull it down, because if anyone at Disney is listening to us, it's not going to have a very long shelf life. The first time that I watched it, or rewatched it, I should say, when I sat down for this review, I was like, what did I ever see in this movie? It's not funny. It's disgusting. And I wasn't even looking forward to having to watch it again with notes. Like, honestly, this week dragged knowing that I had to do it a second time. And I procrastinated with it. Honestly, I really did. You came home from work one night and I was still watching it, and I was like, I have the whole prom scene left. And I was like, let me know when you're doing your notes and I'll just tag in the last 10 minutes with you, just because it couldn't hold my interest anymore. But I think if there's one thing that I did see in it then, and there's glimmers of it now, it is some of the heartfelt things that they tried to do. They go about them all wrong, but in there somewhere, they tried to write a decent character arc of, this young girl appreciating what she has around her and trying to better herself and her relationships. But like, that's about it. That's about all it's got going for it. And a young Rachel McAdams and seeing her first role and how talented she is. Yeah, it's unfair to the cast that they are all buried in this and attached to this movie.
We want to know what you have to say about The Hot Chick. You can let us know on all forms of social media at Monoreel Radio, or you can send us an email, monoreelradio@gmail.com. News of the week is coming up, but first a quick break.
News of the Week is proudly sponsored by KMV Travel. KMV Travel is a boutique travel agency that helps families plan personalized vacations and create unforgettable memories on land and at sea. KMV Travel specializes in Disney destinations, family theme parks, and most major cruise lines, providing unmatched service from start to finish with the belief that vacations are an important part of life. KMV Travel will help you and your family experience new places, learn about other cultures, relax, and reconnect with those who mean most. KMV Travel will guide you from booking to bon voyage, ensuring you have the tools you need to enjoy each moment of your vacation at no extra cost to you. Visit kmvtravel.com to connect with an expert travel advisor and start planning your getaway now.
Camp Rock 3 is coming to Disney Plus.
Sean, I am really disappointed at that lackluster delivery. Come on now.
Oh, sorry. Should I have gone Camp Rock?
Exactly. That's what we want. There it is. Thank you.
No date yet on its release, but it is coming to Disney Plus. The Jonas Brothers are returning, which I think is tremendous news. You know, just in terms of their star power, Demi Lovato is serving as an executive producer, which is not uncommon for what they're doing now, because you've seen Milo and Meg Donnelly have gotten EP credit on Zombies.
Exactly.
But Demi will not be involved on screen as far as we know. She could have a cameo maybe, But the big news and what has everybody really excited is that the Jonas Brothers are going to be in the film.
Yeah, I think they were kind of forced into announcing this because I think some set photos were leaked. But my guess is that if Demi's on set, not to mention the fact that at the Jonas Brothers show, they did bring her out to sing the song in New York. Like, I remember it was all over my feeds just because so many people that I knew were at that show.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like if she's embracing it again, she has to make the cameo, right? But, as far as a release date, we don't have one yet. And I don't care if it's released in 2050, long after the demise of Monoreel Radio. So we don't have to watch it.
Yeah, put it off as long as you can. Release it with that John Malkovich movie with Robert Rodriguez that comes out 100 years after they shot it. That would be perfectly fine with me.
I'm telling you, if we never do it, it'll be too soon. But we're gonna save it till the very, very end. It's gonna be that and Sharpay, and that's how we'll go out when we run out of movies. Those will be the last two.
They just may. You know what we are very excited for though? The Mandalorian and Grogu coming out on May 22nd of 2026. We've got the first trailer. We've got some poster art. I'm getting a look from you, so I guess I can only speak on my own behalf when I say maybe I'm excited for it.
No, I'm excited for it, but I feel like this was moved up from the original release. I thought it was supposed to be either later in the year or even 2027. I think this slid, which is telling. But I was actually very excited to see this artwork on the poster. Well, slightly conflicted. It's beautiful artwork.
It sure is.
It's a return to form of those old school posters, like a classic Indiana Jones poster.
Yeah.
But there's a very specific style of poster because they were all painted by Drew Struzan. He did, I believe he did Indy, but most notably he did the Muppets. So all of those really gorgeous posters with the bright colors that looked hand painted, it's because they were. So my fear now, my hope is that there is an artist who is emulating his style. My fear is that his work was fed into AI and that's what spat out that poster. I would love to think though that Jon Favreau is above that.
Let's talk about the holidays at Walt Disney World, one of our most favorite events of the year since moving to Florida has been the Candlelight Processional. If you have never seen the Candlelight Processional, and if your travel plans allow, and of course, if you celebrate Christmas, I could not suggest with any more force that this is an event that you need to see.
Even if you don't celebrate Christmas, it is just a truly magical evening. It just puts you in the holiday spirit. And it's not just the Candlelight Processional, but to go around to each of the pavilions where they do have, all of these different holiday traditions, and some have the Santas doing story times and explaining the origin in the country. It's truly one of the best things that Disney does all year. And we've been super fortunate to go.
Yeah. So it's going to start on November 28th of this year with its final date being December 30th, running on select nights. It does not run every single... Actually, no, you know what? It does run every night as I'm looking at this, because last year there were some gaps because I think they had cancellations. It runs every night.
Last year they were doing it like
does.
3 to 4 nights at a clip. I think that probably a lot of that depends on the talent schedule. But that's really great that they're doing it every night. There's no excuse not to do it if you're going to be on vacation, including
Christmas Eve and on Christmas Day. If you happen to be in the parks, there are some notable new additions. Let's just talk the one that's not back again. Stamos is not back again this year.
We will catch him one year.
We did catch him. We saw him once.
But I think it was in passing because we were there. We didn't actually get seated for him. For Josh Gad, we did.
Correct.
But we didn't get
You are
to
right about that.
sit close. Like, I want the full Stamos experience.
His draw is insane, though.
Yeah,
But somebody who we did draw somebody that we got seated for easily, which now has become a mainstay, is Brendan Fraser.
I can't recommend that one enough because I think we did it the year after The Whale. Or was it the same year that The Whale? Yeah, The Whale came out earlier that year. So I don't think we had high hopes for getting in.
Right.
But it was his big comeback year.
I think it was his first year narrating it.
Yeah.
He was phenomenal. He's going to be there December 20th through the 22nd. But a couple of, in my opinion, a couple of notable additions, a lot of them coming from the MCU.
Yes.
Jennifer Garner is doing 2 nights. Leslie Ugam's Blind Al is doing 2 nights at the Candlelight Processional.
Not believe that. We might have to go.
I want to go for her, but I know the one we are targeting.
Yeah, our big one is going to be Henry Winkler. I mean, like, how do you not go and see the Fonz?
Water sucks. Gatorade's better. He's high on our list. And then Brie Larson.
Yeah.
Brie Larson doing a couple of days, December 27th through 28th. So I think this is definitely going to be an exciting lineup in terms of your celebrity narrators. A couple of other names off the top of my head that aren't back. Whoopi's not back, but I don't think she's been back in a while. And Pat Sajak. Well, I think Pat Sajak is really starting to enjoy his retirement because he was very much like Stamos. He was another mainstay that had been there more years than not.
And I can't remember, is Sterling on there?
No, Sterling is not back this year. For the full roster of celebrity narrators, we are going to be posting it onto our social media. So be sure to be following Monoreel Radio on all major platforms, and you will see the list of celebrity narrators. Thank you so much for joining us this and every week on Monoreel Radio. Monoreel Radio will always be free, but there are many ways that you can support the show. Please give us a rating wherever you listen to your podcast. Join the conversation on social media at Monoreel Radio on all major platforms. Share your favorite episodes with family and friends who may enjoy them. And of course, book your next trip with Jackie. Links to everything can be found at monoreelradio.com. We all get one story. Make yours a magical one.
On behalf of Monoreel Radio, we'd like to thank you for joining us. We'll see you at the movies, the stuff dreams are made of.